Well, good afternoon, everyone. It looks like the room is starting to fill up. Welcome to Sending Your Student to OWU. We're thrilled to have you here this afternoon. This is a session that we would normally do during one of our major on-campus events. And so we're thrilled to have the chance to bring it to you virtually, to bring all the expertise that we would typically bring to you in person, to you in this setting as well. Hopefully you're in a comfortable place and space and can sit back and enjoy. You certainly do have the option to submit questions. Some of you already have. Thank you very much. We've incorporated those into the set of questions that we plan to ask of our panelists. My name is Stephanie Niles. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment and Communications here at Ohio Wesleyan, and thrilled to have the chance to join you today. I was telling our panelists that my daughter, who's a junior in high school, is just down the hall taking a voice lesson right now. So if you heard some live music when you came on, that was her. So I am also, like many of you, online looking for opportunities that I can explore with her as she is trying to build a list virtually at this point in time. I think you'll find this session to be really helpful. And so I am going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then they'll tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do at Ohio Wesleyan and whom they serve. And then I will start with the first question. So Dwayne, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dwayne Todd. I'm the Vice President for Student Engagement and Success and the Dean of Students at Ohio Wesleyan. And I'm thrilled to be on the panel with you today.
Doug?
Hi, everyone. My name is Doug Koyle. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Success. I'm part of the same division that reports up through Dwayne, Student Engagement and Success. My specific area includes residential life, public safety, counseling services, our student conduct and community standards work, and I serve as the liaison with our Student Health Center as well. So glad to have a chance to talk with you today. I'm excited about the opportunity to meet all of you in person at some point.
Lynda.
Hello, I'm Lynda Hall. I am a professor in the psychology department, and I'm Associate Dean for Academic Performance. I'm in a different division. I'm in the Academic Affairs division, and my specific responsibilities include organizing our first year course, the UC 160 course. I also help to collaborate with my colleagues from Student Engagement and Success to plan our orientation programs. And I also am a liaison to the Sagan Academic Resource Center that oversees disability services, peer tutoring, professional tutoring, the Writing Resource Center, and academic advising.
And Megan.
Hi, everybody. I am Megan Ellis. I am the Executive Director of OWU Career Connection. I'm also the Director of the Delaware Entrepreneurial Center at Ohio Wesleyan, and a very proud alum of the class of 2005. We at the Career Connection help your students navigate the whole process through learning more about themselves and just exploring career, all the way through landing that job and then being able to navigate a very fulfilling and successful career. In that also includes applying to graduate school and finding their niche wherever that may be.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much. As I said, we had a number of questions submitted by folks in advance, so we will jump into one of those questions. Lynda, this question is directly to you, at least at first. My student is undecided about a major. Who will help them? What role does their advisor play in that process?
First, I would say great. I think it's wonderful when people are not decided on a major. In fact, I think really the worst situation a student can be in is if they are committed to a major prematurely and spend some time there and then junior year discover that no, it's not the right major for them. So one of the advantages of a liberal arts education is that you have lots of opportunity to explore. First and second years is dedicated to that for the most part. So you can try courses in lots of different divisions and see what really fits with you well. I used to tell my own children that gave them the opportunity to make an informed decision about a major. You can decide after you've tried it. We require students to declare their major by the end of their sophomore year. So you do need to be making progress that way, but you'll have some time. The process to help you is multifaceted. We'll start this summer. During orientation, you'll work with faculty members to help pick those first courses. And we hope that you'll have some ideas about what you want to explore. That's certainly helpful. In the fall of your first year, we ask you to take a course for first year students called the OWU Experience. We refer to it as UC 160. That means it's a university course. All new students are required to take that. It's a small group course focused on a lot of discussion and an opportunity to explore the curriculum and the co-curriculum and what all those opportunities mean. And we have students work in that course to put together a 4-year plan. Now, the 4-year plan, we have them list out all the courses that they think they might take over 8 semesters. And the point is not. So students select what courses to take spring semester, senior year. You do not know that at that point in time. But what we do hope is that you'll learn about the tools that are available to help you explore what the requirements are for various majors, how to fit them in, how to do the timing of it all, etc. And just how to plan generally, so that as you move forward, you can come up with a plan that it is one that you will be able to follow. You will also be assigned to an academic advisor. We try to match academic advisors with students' interest areas from the beginning, but students have the opportunity to switch advisors at any point when they're here. So if you get here and find out midway through the first semester that you really are much more interested in a different field, all you have to do is find a faculty member in that field who's willing to advise you, and that's usually pretty easy to do. So lots of different opportunities that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynda. And I'll stick with you for a moment. I had another question. If my student is struggling academically, what resources are available to them?
Lots of resources again. First of all, we have small classes. Faculty know the students in their classes, so the first place to always start is talking to your instructor. Instructors have office hours. Instructors are available to students. That's a good starting point. We also have the Sagan Academic Resource Center that has a wide variety of resources. The Writing Resource Center is part of that, where we have professional writing tutors. Those tutors will go through any paper with a student before it's turned in and make comments on how to improve the structure, the organization, the wording of the writing. That particular service is provided at no additional cost. So the only thing students need to do to make sure they take advantage of that service is to prepare their papers early enough. So if it's 4 o'clock in the morning and the paper's due at 8, that doesn't work so well. But that's one service that's available through the Sagan Academic Resource Center. We also have a quantitative skills tutor that's there full time. We have peer tutoring through the various departments. We have academic coaching that students do often on a walk-in basis. We have a specific academic coaching program called Bishop Access, and that one is for students with executive functioning disabilities. That is the only service we offer that does require an extra fee. But we prepared that because parents and students were asking for it, and they've been very pleased with it. So that one involves regular sessions, one-on-one with a coach, an academic coach, and also more contact with the student's parents if the student gives permission for that. We also have the Disability Services Center. Stephanie Rowland is our coordinator there. She helps students to identify what are appropriate accommodations based on their documentation for various disabilities. Sometimes those are long-term disabilities, but every now and then we have an athlete or a student in a car accident who has a concussion, and they need to acquire support through academic disability services on a temporary basis. So she works with any student who needs special accommodations in their classes.
Great, thank you. And this next question, Lynda, you might answer part of this. Dwayne, you might also take another piece of it. What is the student-athlete experience like? How do athletes make up classes they might miss due to travel to games?
Well, maybe I'll start, Dwayne, and then I'll let you talk because I've been talking too much. First of all, we are Division III athletics, and part of what that means is that classes come first, and we work closely with our coaches to make sure that that is, in fact, the way that the schedules are set up. So practices don't begin before 4 in the afternoon, or else they're very early in the morning. Sometimes there are some very early morning practices, but they're not during class hours. So we don't have a lot of conflict with practices. We also work with our coaches to make sure that schedules are set up for the athletic events to minimize disruption to classes. And that means as few times as possible when a game would take a student away from classes, but also we try to make sure that when it does, it's not always on the same day of the week, so it won't interfere with the same class. So that's another way to minimize the amount of disruption. Student athletes are responsible for making up the work that they miss. Faculty work with them, coaches work with them. I think we've got a good partnership with coaches to try to make sure that we're working together. Teams also have study tables where they meet regularly to work together on academic events, and we locate that in the library where we have other tutoring available right there, so that we've got that matchup so students have access to that as well.
Yeah, I think Lynda covered that fairly well. I would just emphasize that our faculty are very cooperative in understanding that students who are athletes will need to travel to competitions, and that's a part of their liberal arts experience also. So our faculty understand that this isn't just fun and games necessarily. This is a learning experience for these athletes and a part of their total college experience, and they can appreciate that. That being said, we have an intercollegiate athletics committee that is a faculty committee that oversees our athletics program and particularly the scheduling that comes with this. So they're looking very carefully at the proposed schedule for each sport to make sure that athletes in a particular team are not traveling excessively during a time when there might be, academic requirements on campus that all students are experiencing and that sort of thing. So they're monitoring that very carefully. I sat on that committee for a year or two and saw firsthand the kind of diligence that the university provides to make sure that students are in classrooms in a sufficient amount of time and not distracted by traveling.
Thank you. Megan, a question that came in that you can answer: how can my students secure an internship? And specifically, are there internship options for first-year students?
Yes, what a great question. Absolutely. So something that's really unique to Ohio Wesleyan is that we are working with students of all different class years to secure those positions. And some of that is starting just with exploration. So we do some trips, externships during fall and spring break, and then we're also building, starting this coming academic year, career treks. So before we even commit to an internship, we can start out with externships and career treks to learn more about different industries. This provides our students an opportunity to understand, let's say your student says, I really want to go into law. Well, what type of law? Let's now explore all these different options and really have the time to meet folks who do this on a day-to-day basis, understand what it's like to live in that life for the few days. And then with those relationships built from our alumni and then also from the great work that our team does to reach out and make new contacts, we're setting up internships every day. And we also have several partnerships through the university where a student can gain academic credit for these types of programs for internships. We have some study away programs, relationships with the Philadelphia Center, for example, with the New York Arts program, where they can receive academic credit, they can take some courses. They also have the experience of doing these internships. A lot of the other programs that we do, for example, Summer on the Cuyahoga, a brand new one in Columbus, they also have professional and personal development built in, and they take students of all different years. So not only are you having the internship experience, but you're also learning how to network. You're learning from people in the industry that you're interested in, and you're making great connections. From all of those experiences, we have had so many students who have converted those opportunities into full-time experiences or offers.
Great, thank you. This is a question that came from a parent of a student who lives further away. How would, and probably Dwayne or Doug, you could handle this, how would our student get to campus? Are there transportation options to and from the Columbus airport?
Do you want to speak to that from a public safety perspective?
Sure. For those who maybe aren't familiar with the central Ohio area. We're in Delaware, Ohio, just north of Columbus. The Columbus Airport is located off of the Outer Belt nearby, and so it's a fairly direct route to get to our campus. Although we do offer shuttles at certain times of the year, we don't offer them during the kind of the peak move in, move out periods, but we do offer them at different times as well. But it's if you're flying into the Columbus area, it's a fairly direct route to get to campus at least. I don't know, Dwayne, if you have anything to add.
Well, what we do in terms of facilitating this is we set up a website for students to reserve a time that they would like to either go to the airport or be picked up from the airport. That service is run by our public safety office. Officers are making those drives. And there are probably 3 or 4 different options, time slots during the day when we will make those trips back and forth. So hopefully we're finding times that students can work around in terms of planning their flight schedules. Some leave very early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, and maybe the last one's coming back at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So they're throughout the day, and I feel sure we're hitting the times when students need to be picked up.
Yeah, and we do send that information out to students so that they can sign up. And as Dwayne mentioned, it's coordinated by our public safety department on campus in collaboration with residential life. So we get that information out to students at different times of the year so that they know what's available and how to sign up for it. And then we'll work with students on a case-by-case basis as much as possible.
Thank you. Here's another question relative to transportation. Are there shuttle buses to get to stores like Target or Walmart? What if students don't have cars? And then more generally, what's the surrounding town like?
Yeah, I'll take a first crack at it. Ohio Wesleyan is located immediately adjacent to the sort of business center of Delaware. Literally within the block where we have our campus are lots of restaurants and boutiques and coffee shops and barber shops and all those kinds of things that you would expect to be around you if you're going to have an enjoyable life within a city area. So it is a kind of a historic district. So the buildings are quaint, and the city really loves having our students here. We have a wonderful relationship with Delaware. They miss our students when they're not here, not just because they bring some dollars with them, but they genuinely like our students. They like spending time with them. So they're just a number of really nice options, and literally within no farther than 3 blocks from campus are there are probably 20, 30 restaurants easily. And then in terms of getting around town, there is a regional shuttle bus that is run by the city of Delaware. And it has a stop right adjacent to campus. And from there, students can get just about anywhere within the city of Delaware that they need to go. We don't have a Target, unfortunately, which is my discount store of choice, or Target if you want to be fancy. But we have a Walmart, and we have a Kroger, and we have Meijer, and all of those are places where this bus can take students. These buses, I should say. It's a transit system.
If I could jump in here too, the city and the county are great partners of ours. So as I mentioned, the Delaware Entrepreneurial Center at Ohio Wesleyan, that's a joint venture partnership between the university, the city, and the county. And I bring that up because the city and county are growing exponentially. It's one of the fastest growing counties of the state, meaning a lot of new businesses are relocating to the area and hiring more people. So when we reach out to our friends over at the city and the county, they have opportunities for our students. They are more than open to having them come and intern or shadow or just learn about what they do there. And for our partners in Columbus, I think it has changed over the last 20 years or so, where Columbus and Delaware felt far apart, and now it is truly just a suburb of Columbus, really. And for working or internships, we're able to help students offset expenses related to those opportunities through grants that have been generously donated from alumni to be able to provide them the opportunities to get there. It's very easy to get down to Columbus. So a lot of opportunities on the career and just personal side of things too.
I'll also mention there is a very large shopping center called Polaris. It's the Polaris Fashion Center. I don't know. It's a mall, but it has a bunch of outdoor things too. So it's not just an indoor old-fashioned mall. Many restaurants and Lowe's and Target is there. The bus will take. It's on the route to take people there as well if they want to get to an actual large shopping district that you would find, in any large metropolitan suburb.
Thanks, Dwayne. Doug, Dwayne mentioned public safety. That's an area that you oversee. One of the questions that we received asked, what safety measures are in place at Ohio Wesleyan?
Great, good question. Ohio Wesleyan has a public safety department, and it's staffed on campus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And although they support the entire campus, the office is in our residential side, actually within a residence hall. And our officers are very visible and accessible to students. We do have a number of the blue safety lights and call stations on campus. We have a very strong relationship with the Delaware Police Department, and they've been very responsive to us when called. So it's a great team. I think a lot of the community, the university community, knows the public safety staff by name very well. They check in with folks pretty regularly. They care very much about our students. They're available, like I said, anytime, day or night. And they're very collaborative with our other departments as well, like residential life and some of the other areas that kind of help keep our students safe.
Out a couple more things. We do leave our residence hall exterior doors locked all the time. So in order to get into the residence halls, a student must have access through their student ID in order to open the door. And so those students who are not even residential students would have to be let into the residence halls. So we just leave them locked all the time and find that helps our students feel more secure and limits who can come into the buildings. And then I would say that our residential life staff, our RAs in particular, are trained on some safety measures. Our public safety staff do provide trainings both to students and to staff and faculty around safety issues and response measures should they be needed. And so we do have some of those ongoing training opportunities as well for our campus.
We also have a Delaware City Fire Station right on campus as well. So that I think that helps students and staff feel safe and secure.
When we make a call for a police presence or an EMS or something along those lines, some kind of emergency response, it literally is probably 2 minutes at most before we have a response. So they are on campus with, sometimes before we can even get to the scene ourselves.
While the two of you are still on, we had a question posed about mental health services. Could you address if a student is in need of mental health services or gets sick? How do we address those needs?
Sure. We have a student health center and a counseling center on campus, both separate departments. And it's helpful to know that and they're conveniently located. They're easy for students to find, easy to get an appointment. The health center is staffed by nurses and doctors during normal business hours. Students don't need to make a copay or have their insurance billed for an office visit. We do prefer that students have health insurance, though, for other needs that they might have, like lab work, x-rays, if they need to go to the hospital, that sort of thing. In our counseling center, it also easy to find, easy to get an appointment. And again, no copay. They don't have to have their insurance billed, for that as well. So students do use both frequently. And it's also, I think, helpful for our students that if they need to speak with a counselor any time of day or night, we have a phone line that's available. So students can speak with the mental health provider anytime. Again, not something that they have to pay for. And we have a text-based phone app that students can download that would allow them to text with a board-certified primary care physician any time of day or night. And interestingly, those physicians can actually diagnose and can issue prescriptions to students. And they get very high marks from our students, and that's also at no cost. So those are great options for students, and it's helpful that they have options depending on what they need at the time or what time of day or night it is. And then we also have a team of colleagues that provide a lot of support to students as needed. I know Lynda mentioned our disability services coordinator. She's a part of that team. As I mentioned earlier, public safety officers are available. They're trained. They'll actually transport students to the hospital when needed. I know they'll call me any time of day or night to let me know if there's a concern about a student. So we have a very kind of responsive and accessible team. And as I mentioned, a lot of good options.
Thanks, Doug. There were a whole series of questions that have come in about residence life. So let me pose those, and I'll do so. Try one or two at a time. There's a number of them. What residential options are there for students at Ohio Wesleyan? Does my student have to live on campus for all 4 years? Dwayne, you want to start?
Yes, we have a number of varieties, types of housing for students. We have everything from your traditional residence halls where students have a roommate and they're on a corridor where there's a hall bathroom, to suites where there's 2 bedrooms connected to a bathroom that those 2 bedrooms share, to single bedrooms with their own bathroom in the unit. And very soon, great breaking ground here in a couple of weeks on a new apartment building where there will be either 4, 6, or 8 students living in an apartment in essentially private bedrooms with a full kitchen, 2 full bathrooms within each unit, much like an apartment that they would rent off campus. And so those options are all available to students. Those are our traditional residence halls. We have what we call residential houses as well, and those tend to focus around either a topic or an identity characteristic, where or an academic theme, where students who have shared interests will live together in a smaller community. Those can range anywhere from 12 students to 28 students in size, or maybe even 30. So those tend to be locations where students either select each other to live together with a theme, like our small living units, or in the honors house, they need to be an honors student and qualified to live in that space. We have a House of Black Culture, and the students select themselves to live there, and we will assign them there. So lots of different varieties of sizes and types of housing options for students. And all the smaller housing units have full kitchens as well. So there's a question about our new residence hall renovation project going on. So I'll answer that at the same time if I can. We are in the process of renovating Smith Residence Hall. It's really our largest residence hall that has been kind of a suite style arrangement. We're converting that into our first year living community. And we are renovating half of the building now, and the other half will be under renovation the next academic year. So the full building will be ready in fall of 21. That building is being completely gutted on the inside. Really, the only thing that's remaining are the outer walls, and the whole thing is being rebuilt on the inside. where it will be an arrangement where students have a roommate. There will be hall baths, but this is not your traditional hall bath that some of us really enjoyed in college. This will be an arrangement where there's shared sinks that are out for the hall to use, but then private bathrooms, private toilets, private showers. It's like a room you go into and shut the door and it's all yours. So students can have some privacy, which they expect these days in those kinds of arrangements. It will be literally brand spanking new come this fall. So we're excited about that. We have some really cool features in the building. There's a fitness center going in that's 24/7. We'll have a video game room that goes in for residents to enjoy each other. A really beautiful kitchen, community kitchen to share. There'll be a large kind of riser seating area with a big screen TV for presentations or gaming or movie night or that kind of thing. We're really excited about it. It will be available for about 200 first-year students come this fall. And then when the other half opens, it'll have capacity to house most, if not all, of our first-year class together. So we'll be able to have some first-year students in there next year, and then the full class the following year. And yes, we are a residential campus, and our policy is that students live on campus all 4 years, unless they are, they meet certain criteria. They sort of age out at, I think it's 23 years old. They're married, or if they are commuting from their home residence within about I think it's a 30-mile radius of campus. Otherwise, students are required to live on campus for all 4 years.
And Dwayne, can you say a little bit more about how residence halls and roommates are assigned both first year and beyond? And I can't remember if you mentioned this, but are all residence halls co-ed? That was part of an earlier question.
Right. Yeah, so many of our students will find roommates during the different kinds of processes where we bring students together as a first year class in the summer and in the spring. Often this would happen during orientation in June. We are going to have to provide orientation virtually this year, and we're working hard to make that an engaging program for them. So they will still be in small group conversations, even virtually. And this is an opportunity to meet some other students in that regard. But it will make it maybe a little more challenging to just, find that perfect roommate because you ate dinner together, during orientation. So we, as we do anyway, every year, we provide a survey, kind of a questionnaire to first year students to fill out that is answering questions about personality style and living habits. And, are you a late night person? Are you are you up early? Are you messy? Are you neat? What kind of music do you like? Those kinds of things are what we find that seem to matter in terms of whether roommates get along very well. And we, by and large, have a great success in matching roommates together. So we will do that again this year, where students will fill out a questionnaire. We use our computer matching system, our software, to help us match students who are most like each other, most likely to get along. We'll put it that way. And we'll go from there. If students have a roommate request, we are always glad to honor that. The roommates just need to request each other. So they need to be in communication about putting each other's name on the housing sign-up list so that we make sure we can match that properly. What was another question, Stephanie, about that?
About co-ed? Are the residents
co-ed? Yeah, they are all co-educational, either by rooms, depending on how the bathroom situation works on the floor. If it's a shared bathroom, they're co-ed by floor. If they're a suite style arrangement where the bathroom is in the unit, then they are co-ed by suite. We have one residence hall that is female only, and that is Hayes Hall, and that one has students from every classification level in it, freshmen all the way through seniors.
Thank you. I'll give our panelists a break for just a moment. There were a couple of questions that came in about the class of 2024 and our projections for what the size might look like given the uncertainty of the coronavirus. I think uncertainty is the key word here. And like all colleges, we are not able at this point in time to make a projection. We anticipated that we would have a total new student population between 400 and 450 students. I think most colleges are considering whether or not their incoming class may be smaller due to the way in which students might make decisions differently than they perhaps would even a month ago, when the environment and situation we were all in is different. I will say at this point in time, however, our deposits are actually at the highest point they have been at this moment as compared to each of the last 4 years. So students are definitely still indicating their strong level of interest in Ohio Wesleyan. We are actively preparing for their arrival this fall and looking forward to that new class. Certainly we are talking about all the possibilities for what may happen this coming fall, whether or not students will be able to be on campus. That's a real consideration that every college or university needs to consider and plan for, though of course we hope that we will return to some sense of normalcy and we will see our students join us in August. But we will certainly keep families informed every step of the way as we learn more and come to understand more about this situation. There was a question specifically about international students and will they be able to study at Ohio Wesleyan? Again, I think that's going to really have a lot to do about their ability to obtain a visa and if that process will be delayed or impeded by the situation with COVID-19. We have told international students who've been admitted to Ohio Wesleyan that we will be prepared to offer them an online learning experience this fall if they are not able to join us on campus physically this fall and then delay their actual time on campus to the spring. But we do plan to provide international students with that experience this coming fall. Along those lines, let me turn a question to Lynda. Lynda, there was a question, how is online learning going?
It's an adventure. I'm teaching 2 classes, and I think that's the best way to put it. Fairly well. Our faculty came together in a huge way. It's really nice to be part of a community that works together as well as the entire community did, not just the faculty, but the faculty and the staff in order to make a very rapid transition to offer remote learning. We have offered for several years online courses in the summer only. And we have asked faculty who taught those summer online courses to go through some pretty in-depth training for teaching online. And so that really helped us. We had almost a third of the faculty who already had been through that training. And so they served as mentors for the rest of us. Having said that, we're adjusting as we go. I know for my classes, I started off trying to follow the guidelines for best practices for online learning, meaning that I had lots and lots and lots of small assignments, and the students were telling me that was just a few too many, so I've backed off a little bit. We're learning. Not only has it been a challenge in that the faculty had to make adjustments, but it's been a huge adjustment for the students. So students didn't sign up for this, and in some cases, students were not particularly prepared in terms of the technology to be able to respond. So one challenge for us, for example, is that most people who are specialists in online learning will tell you that the best way to do an online course is asynchronous, so that I put things on the web and my students can access that when it's convenient for them, rather as opposed to having sessions where everyone meets together. We're finding that our students want those sessions where they meet together. They're accustomed to talking to faculty, to discussing things with their fellow classmates. They want those opportunities. But that then creates all kinds of challenges when students are in different time zones, especially for our international students. So trying to balance those things is a continual learning process. And we continue to adapt. I think our students have been great partners. They're giving us good feedback. They've been good sports. We did change one of our policies. We have a policy for what's called credit no entry. That was initially designed to encourage students to explore and to take a course in something that they are completely unfamiliar with. So for me, that would be the arts. So if I took an arts course, that would be a little bit risky, and I might not want to risk my GPA. And if I decided to do a course like that, credit no entry, what that would mean is as long as I earned a C- or better, I'd get a pass, and it wouldn't impact my GPA. But if I didn't earn that C-, the course would go away. I wouldn't get credit for it, but my GPA would not take a hit. So we are offering that option much more widely this semester to allow students to make the kinds of adjustments they need to make, and also just in recognition of the stress that everyone is under right now. So I think we're doing as well as could be expected, but it is a challenge.
Thanks, Lynda. This next question, I think any of you could answer from the different perspectives that you bring. So I'll let any of you jump in. This is from a parent who says our student is trying to decide about Ohio Wesleyan. He's used to big city public school life and a very diverse student body. His main concern is a worry he won't fit in and won't feel at home. Can you talk about how students start to get to know each other and make friends in their first few weeks?
Well, I'll talk programmatically about what we do, and welcome input from any other folks. We have a really robust first-year transition program, programs, I should say, an array of things that are designed to help students meet other students in a sort of a casual setting, to develop meaningful relationships as quickly as possible, because that is the concern you have for your student is the concern that I would say most, if not virtually all, parents have for their student, and students have for themselves, whether they voice it or not. And we know that they come in with a high degree of anxiety about their ability to fit in and feel comfortable and make a home here. So we have our orientation program in the typical summer that is a part of the experience of welcoming students to campus and helping them understand how things work at Ohio Wesleyan, make some friends, meet some faculty, get registered for their courses. That's another area of pretty high anxiety for first-year students, is just what will my first-year schedule look like? And Lynda surely will want to talk about that in a second, because you know, as we do virtual orientation this summer, we'll have to do that a little bit differently this year, but we're planning on that. The other incoming program we do for students that's at a grand scale is called Camp OWU. Camp OWU is a program that all first-year students will participate in. The only students who are not actually going to a camp would be student athletes who are in a fall sport. They're in their practice season leading up to, the start of competition. So they have their own intensive sort of camp experience happening within the team already. They're, obviously meeting all day long. They're doing their own team development exercises and talking about the transition to college. So they have their own experience there. Other students, including spring athletes, will go to one of the camps that we offer. And there are 4 varieties that we have. We have a service camp. We have a wilderness camp where they'll go out to the wilderness in West Virginia, and they'll hike and canoe and climb rocks and go into caves and all kinds of things like that. They stay intense, so it is camping in its truest sense. But students who love the outdoors really, really love that experience. The other camp is the challenge camp, which is an opportunity to go to a camp facility with cabins, air-conditioned cabins, and a dining hall and activity center, and all those more traditional summer camp experiences, where they will have a series of challenge exercises they do together as small groups, including high ropes and low ropes. And then there's the service camp that I mentioned. They'll go do service experiences during the day and come back to it's a conference center that's like a hotel, and do their small group activities there and processing there. And then there's city camp, which is held on campus. They actually stay in their residence hall rooms, but they're busy all day in small groups doing similar activities on campus and in Delaware and in Columbus, getting to know our cities much better. So all of those camps are united around the goal of helping students decrease anxiety about starting college, make friends, get more familiar with Ohio Wesleyan resources and services, and just sort of be up on both feet by the time classes start. So those are 3-day experiences. So they leave on a Friday before classes. They come back on Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday. Monday's an academic day where they're having their first UC 160 class. They're meeting with their academic advisors. In many cases, they're getting their final questions answered. There's just 1 or 2 facilitated programs that day, and then Tuesday we really try to leave open for them to take a breath, get settled in, if they want to tour campus and find out where their classes are, they can do that. And then Wednesday we start classes. So I'll turn it over to Lynda to talk a little bit more about how advising and registration happens for them.
Okay. I'm going to take the question from a bit of a different angle first, and then I'll go to advising and registration. One of the things to know is that historically, Ohio Wesleyan served a purpose with the Methodist Church. In the early 1900s, we were an institution that prepared missionaries to go abroad. And what that meant for the institution was that we created a lot of relationships with institutions from other countries. And so for very early on, we had a fairly high proportion of international students here. We had a club for students from India in the early 1900s, which was just not very typical of the time at all. We continue to bring in a number of international students every year. They contribute in substantial ways to our campus life. We also have made strides in recent years in terms of enhancing the diversity of our domestic students. Having said that, though, we're not as diverse as large public schools, many large public schools. And so I think sometimes that's a shock to some of our students that they're expecting more diversity than they find. Our students tend to gravitate to others with similar interests. So our athletes spend a lot of time with people on their team and make friends with other athletes. People who are in sororities and fraternities spend a lot of time with people in those kinds of organizations, et cetera. But one of the things I've always appreciated about this campus is that the various student groups work very well together. So this semester, before everyone left campus, we had a speaker who was coming in to talk about the Vietnam War. And the college Democrats and the college Republicans and the Young Democratic Socialists, 3 different groups with quite different perspectives on politics, came together to sponsor a series of movies for students to come in and learn more about the Vietnam War before this speaker. I have been on service trips over spring break several times, and every time I go, there are students who are athletes and students who are not athletes, students who are in sororities and fraternities and students who are not, students who are in music and students who are not. I'm also advisor to one of the music clubs, one of the a cappella groups. And again, an unusual mix of students in that group brought together by their love of music. So I think in terms of having students find their niche on campus, the fact that students are pretty open and accepting and encouraging one another is a really important factor.
And then you want to talk about registration also?
Registration. Registration, yes, that's an important one. So for this summer, for first-year students, we will have a week in June 22nd to 26th, in which we're going to have incoming students have individual virtual appointments with a faculty member, and we'll walk through how to select their courses. We'll actually get them in their courses, get them registered for their fall courses at that point in time. Prior to that, we're in the process of putting together an online course that will help present some of the information we would typically have presented in an on-campus orientation program. So we'll tell you how to find your bill and how to pay it. We'll tell you how to communicate to people in the financial aid office. And we'll tell you how to find a lot of different information about what courses are available, what courses are wise for first-year students to take, what this UC 160 course is all about, how to indicate your preferences for that course, etc. So we say it's a course, it won't take too much of your time, but it should provide some really valuable information. Students should watch for an email about that. We expect to send that email in late May, early June. The course should be available around June 1. And then we will be registering students for courses from June 22nd to 26th.
Here's two relatively quick questions. The first is about break housing for students, specifically for winter and summer breaks. Do we offer students the option to stay on campus during those times?
Doug, do you want to respond? Doug also oversees our Res Life program.
Yeah, sure, I'll take that. We do offer housing over the break periods. And obviously we have a lot of international students and students who live in other parts of the country. So it's important that we are able to provide that for them if they need it. And they would register for that through the Residential Life office. Students will get information from them about that process as we head into each break. So they'll get a message from the Residential Life team about what the options are and the process for registering for that break housing.
And Doug, another question for you. Do you offer health insurance programs for domestic students?
We do. We have partnered with a health insurance company. It's Mark, and they primarily offer a plan for international students, and those insurance needs are very different than they are for domestic students, and they're much more standardized. So it's important for us that international students are registered for that coverage. Domestic students, knowing that they have different needs, interests, many of them are covered by their families. What we do is we offer through that same insurance company a portal for domestic students to find insurance that fits their needs. And then we'll work with them individually if there are questions or if they need to learn more about options and what's important for them. And that information will come out. It usually comes from me. I send it out to all students and parents about the options and the process for registering for coverage.
Great, thank you. There were a couple of questions that came in about athletes and whether or not athletes from the same team or just athletes in general are typically housed together. Doug or Dwayne?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes, yes. And as Dwayne mentioned, we have a process for students to select somebody that they'd like to live with. And as long as they're selecting each other, we would do that. And oftentimes we'll see that members of the same team are requesting to live together. And so that's oftentimes the case, especially as they get into their second, third year, and then they're making decisions about where they want to live and who they want to live with and near and around. And so you'll see that developing.
Right. So the coaches will help facilitate this conversation between incoming students on their roster. So there'll be some opportunities for these students to get to know each other, and if they want to request each other in the housing selection process, they can do that. We don't automatically assign student athletes from the same team together.
Thank you. There was a couple of questions about meal plans. Can one of you speak to meal plan options and if students have to be signed up for a meal plan, or can they opt out at a particular point in time?
So all residential students, and remember we're a four-year residential campus, so we house about 90% of our student body, all 4 years that they're here. All students who live on campus must be on a meal plan. They can't opt out of being on a meal plan. They do have choices about different levels of meal plans once they're enrolled here. And there's there's like a platinum plan, which I think is the top one. There's a gold plan and a silver plan. And each one kind of stacks up with different types of things that come with it. All students on a meal plan, on a regular meal plan, have 24/7 access to our all-you-can-eat dining facilities. Smith Hall is where our main dining hall is, and it is open 24/7, never closes. Students can go at any hour of day with their access, with their ID, and eat. And there's hot items all day and night. So that's a really nice option we have for dining. Students never have to go hungry because there's always something to eat on campus. All the meal plans have that option with it. Then we start adding on what we call dining dollars, Bishop dollars, where each plan has a different level of those dollars that can be used in our retail outlets like Bishop Cafe, or we have a cafe in Merrick Hall or the Science Center and those sorts of things, where they can choose to buy additional items like candy and bottled sodas and toilet paper. They might want a frozen meal that they really like in the convenience store. Those kinds of things are what those dollars are used for. A portion of them can also be used off campus at about 6 or 7 partner retail outlets we have in the city to accept our dining dollars, and so they will often use those to buy a smoothie or a hamburger they like somewhere, that kind of thing. So yes, they have to be on a meal plan. There are levels of meal plan options within that structure so that students can find the one that works best for them.
Thank you. Another question, the individual asks, I have an older child at a comparable university who feels there are not a lot of social opportunities in the junior and senior years. There's many opportunities for first-year students, but those activities dwindle in other years. Is that a concern at Ohio Wesleyan?
Yeah, I don't know. Megan seems to have an idea. I'd love to hear her thought on that. I mean, I've never heard of someone saying that they would dwindle at our university. If anything, they probably grow because in the first year, let's just take the fraternity sorority life program. You can't join a fraternity or sorority in your first semester of your first year here. You have to have a GPA established, and our formal recruitment process starts in the beginning of the spring semester. And then they become sort of full members by the end of that semester. And then fraternity men can move into the fraternity buildings, the houses that they have starting their sophomore year. But I would, that sounds like a foreign concept to me. I think if anything, they continue to grow because they become leaders in organizations, and they get opportunities to get involved in things that maybe they didn't even know about as a first year student. So Megan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you said it so well. I would say that from my time as a student, which feels like a long time ago now, to now, I'm really excited to see that those types of programs and the variety of programs for students has just, it was great back then, and it's only grown. So the whole spectrum, if you want to spend every single weekend doing something in the arts, you're going to find something to do. If it's an athletic program, if it is doing something that is academic, if it is learning how to do a brand new activity, you're going to find those opportunities. And just like you said, Dwayne, all of the different groups are so inclusive that you're going to find new opportunities to take leadership roles, be more involved. One of the things that I love about Ohio Wesleyan is that it's so collaborative, I guess you could say. So you'll see faculty and staff and students all coming together to increasingly become more and more involved. So that includes weekends and evenings. There's always something to do. And I would say that even sometimes we have heard from students there's almost too many options because there's so much to do, but in a good way. There's a lot of variety, so students can truly find what they really want to do and learn new things and be exposed to new opportunities every day of the week.
Can I jump in on the Greek life question? Because I think that was another question here since we're kind of on this topic. About 30% of our students are members of a fraternity or sorority, and we have 5 chapters of men's organizations and is that right? Six men's groups, 5 women's groups. And they are an important part of our social fabric. The men are housed together in our fraternity houses. The women have houses also. They're not on campus, but they're adjacent, nearby campus that they use for some of their meetings and get-togethers. And those are, part of the social fabric on campus. But what, as Lynda and Megan have mentioned multiple times, we have a really sort of transparent and fluid social system at the university where students do come in and out of these social groups, and they're not as rigid of cliques as you might find in other locations. So many non-Greek students are not only welcome, but really urged to hang out with our Greek members, even in their own homes, to join their parties, to socialize with them. There's not a kind of a rigid boundary around that at Ohio Wesleyan. But that being said, that means 70% of our students are not Greek affiliated, and those students are also living a very active social life, finding lots of opportunities to engage with each other, at night and on weekends. So that is not, I would say, a quintessential element of the Ohio Wesleyan experience. But it is, for those that are in a Greek organization, it's a really important part of their experience.
Thanks, Dwayne. I'm going to answer this one last question very quickly. Since orientation will be held virtually this year, is there any discussion about bringing the first-year students to campus later in the summer to acclimate them to campus? Obviously, this is if COVID-19 is behind us. Yes, that last part of the question is the key. If COVID-19 is behind us, we are talking about what options we might have. Of course, we'd have to be in a situation where we could bring a large group to campus and do that in a manner that is safe for everyone. And it will depend a bit on the timing. If it is too close to our August 20th start date, we recognize that families would be coming from all over the country potentially to attend a program like this and may not want to or be able to make 2 trips so close together. So we're going to play that by ear. That's certainly an ideal if we are able to open that up to families. We are at the end of the time here together. I do thank our panelists for joining me this afternoon. We have a number of questions that were left unanswered, and you have terrific questions. Let me give you a couple of quick resources that you could use to get those answers. First of all, we hope to do this session again with a similar group of individuals, if not the same people, in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on our Bishop Plus webpage for more information on that. Tonight at 6 p.m., there is a session, Bishop Banter session, where you could ask similar questions of our current students. So that might be another way to get some of your questions answered. On Thursday of this week at 4 p.m., again, Eastern Time, there's a session called Becoming a Bishop. That's specifically geared towards students who have deposited or who are really close to making that final decision. So it's a little bit more nuts and bolts and specifics about next steps. But again, there are certainly some questions that I know were asked here that we couldn't get to that could potentially be addressed in that setting. I also would point you back toward our website and ask you to connect with your admission officer. There's a number of ways that you can make an appointment to do that. You can send email, give them a call, set up a Skype or FaceTime appointment. They are happy to connect with you. They can answer many of your questions, or they can find out the answers to your questions or connect you with the folks who can. So lots of additional ways for you to get these questions answered. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today, and we hope to see you back at another program.